All right, let's dive right in. We're going to break down the incredible pressures that are squeezing the world's most dominant currency, the US dollar. It's been on top for decades, but a whole bunch of global events are starting to converge and challenge its position. So let's get into it and unpack what's really going on here.
So you have to ask the big question, right? Is the dollar's time at the top finally coming to an end? The source material we're looking at today explores this exact debate. There's a growing discussion happening all over the world about the dollar's future and, well, why it seems to be weakening. Now, what's so fascinating here is the split personality of it all. On one side, you had the official line from the White House saying, hey, a weaker dollar, that's actually great for business, great for exporters. But then on the other side, the source points out this growing fear, not just in the US, but everywhere, that global conditions are actively chipping away at the currency's long-held dominance. Okay, so to really get a grip on this pressure, the analysis first takes us to the Middle East, specifically to the rising tensions with Iran. And this isn't just about military posturing. No, this strikes right at the very heart of the dollar's power. And why is that? It's all because of something called the petrodollar system. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. It's basically this long-standing global agreement that oil, the lifeblood of the global economy, is bought and sold using US dollars. This creates this constant, massive worldwide demand for dollars, which is what keeps its value so high. So here's the crucial link. Any threat to the oil supply becomes a direct threat to the dollar. The source argues that military tension creates this perfect domino effect. First, you get the fear of war. That then threatens a critical oil route, and that, in turn, completely spooks investors. They start dumping their dollars and running to safer assets like gold, which is why you see gold prices shoot up.
And this just shows you exactly why that fear is so real. We're not talking about some minor shipping lane. The Strait of Hormuz, a staggering 20%, 1/5 of the entire planet's oil supply, passes through that tiny channel. Any disruption there could set off a global oil crisis and just massive economic chaos.
Now, even with this huge military buildup in the region, the source highlights this official statement as a really telling sign. On the surface, it just sounds like a call for peace, right? But the analysis we're looking at suggests there is a lot more going on beneath the surface. Yeah, the interpretation here is that this statement wasn't just simple diplomacy. It was rooted in a deep, deep fear of the economic fallout. A conflict with Iran wouldn't just be a military issue. The potential for economic retaliation, something that could seriously damage the dollar and the whole global system, was a very powerful reason to hold back. But hey, the pressure isn't only coming from the Middle East. Not at all. The source identifies a second, and this one is a much more deliberate, strategic challenge coming from China and its allies.
And this strategy, it actually has a name: de-dollarization. This isn't just some random thing that's happening. No, it's a conscious, long-term game plan by countries like China and other BRICS nations to systematically move the world away from depending on the US dollar. It's a direct attempt to shift the financial world order.
According to the text we're examining, China's plan is super pragmatic. It's a two-pronged attack. So if you can't just replace the dollar as the world's #1 currency overnight, what do? Well, you weaken it indirectly. And the best way to do that is to make other things, especially strategic metals like gold and silver, look a whole lot more attractive to global investors. And this is an incredibly powerful strategy because China has a ton of leverage here. It controls a huge chunk of the world's rare earth metals, gold production, and key industrial metals like copper. So, if the world's investors start shifting from currencies and towards metals, guess who's perfectly positioned to benefit? China.
Okay, now this is where it gets really, really interesting. The source we're looking at identifies a third pressure point, and this one is coming from, of all places, traditional US allies in Europe, a real curveball.
The analysis points to these growing cracks in the transatlantic alliance. We're seeing European Union countries actively trying to gain more economic and strategic independence from the US. They're reducing their reliance on America for defense and, just forging their own path in global trade.
So the key point is this number right here, $3 trillion. That's roughly how much the European Union holds in US Treasury bonds. And let me tell you, that's not just a number on a screen. That is enormous financial leverage.
And the text explains just how serious a threat this really is. If Europe were to start selling off even a fraction of these bonds, it could send massive shockwaves through the US economy. We're talking about a huge drop in investor confidence and a serious hit to the dollar's value. And look, this isn't just a hypothetical what if, it's already happening. Europe is actively building these huge new trade alliances, like the one with India, that create markets worth tens of trillions of dollars. And what's so significant about these deals is that they are designed to bypass American markets, which reduces U.S. economic influence on the world stage.
So after looking at the trouble in the Middle East, the strategic challenge from the East, and now these cracks in the Western alliance, what does it all mean when you put all the pieces together?
Well, the source concludes that these three very distinct geopolitical pressures are all converging on the dollar from different sides. You've got the very foundation of the petrodollar system under threat, you have a deliberate de-dollarization plan led by China, and you've got this push for independence from Europe. It's a multi-front squeeze.
So the big takeaway here isn't some crazy prediction about an immediate collapse. It's not about panic. Instead, it's that a really significant observable trend is already in motion. The evidence suggests that the dollar's absolute unquestioned dominance is slowly but very clearly on the decline.
And that leaves us with one final forward-looking question. I mean, the entire world's financial system has been built around the dollar for generations. So as these cracks continue to get wider, it forces all of us to ask, who or what is going to define the next era of global economic power?